Are you there, Jake?
I'm here. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Thanks.
I think I've just started recording. There we go. The notice has come up.
Right. Okay. So let's not say anything that we don't want to go onto a recording.
I can stop it and start it again, but
No, that's fine. It's almost time. So.
Okay, I'll go back on mute and then come in if I can let you know about hands raised up, etc.
Thanks, Jake. Okay, hopefully you can all see my slides. Is that right, Karen?
I can.
Excellent, good. I should have used the other camera, but anyway. There's always too many things to remember. Would you have 5 minutes for me this afternoon, Gareth? I'll give you a ring.
Yeah, should have.
Okay, that'd be brilliant. Thank you. I want to speak to you on a personal issue.
Oh, right. Okay. The usual want me to give evidence on your behalf, the usual alibis?
Could be. Right, okay, I'll make it 12 o'clock. So good morning, everybody. I'm sure some of you are still joining us, but let's kick off. We don't have Kevin with us this week. Kevin is on holiday. I didn't know Kevin took holidays, but evidently he is on holiday this week and next week. And I have Gareth with me. Hi, Gareth.
Hello.
And I also have Jake with us this week. He's doing the marshalling, so he'll look out for hands being raised, and he's doing the recording. Hi, Jake.
Hi, Malcolm.
Okay. Naomi is with us, but she's on the telephone at the moment, so she'll join in later. I don't know, is Liz with us, Jake? Or Liz?
Not yet, I don't believe.
Okay. And is Laura with us yet? Laura's usually late.
No.
Okay. So in which case it's just us then, Gareth, for the moment until Dave is free. Which
I'll do my best.
yes. Okay, you better become our revenues and benefits manager pretty quick.
I've had abs.
You have done so. Okay, so probably actually, if some of the delegates would like to raise their hands and comment, that would be great. But let's have a quick look at the stats. I think I said last week the stats were looking quite interesting. The numbers of claims starting each week is still on a slight incline, and the number of calculations are holding pretty steady. I don't really know what that white line is that I can see on there, but I know that the number of claims that are getting through, that are being submitted each week, is also on a slight incline. I think that could change, could it not, Gareth, when we get round to September and the universal credit changes?
I'd be very surprised if it didn't change. I don't think the universal credit changes will necessarily have an effect, because of course the drop in the amounts might mean people losing UC, but they won't be able to claim HB. CTR, I guess, is a different matter. But I think that the overall number of claims is likely again to have a real kind of surge, given the ending of the furlough schemes, the running out of the self-employed income support schemes as well, likely to have an impact there. But you're much more people in a position as the rest of the people on the call, I guess, to understand the impact on local authorities from that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably fairly volatile at the moment. I think that's the problem. I mean, the interesting thing about the BEC stats is that shows the activity, you know, people trying to claim in some form or another, and the success of that claim. I'm always interested in the difference between the number of people who attempt to make a claim and those who actually get their claims submitted. And I suspect for local authorities that don't have, say, something like BECS in place, then actually their workloads are liable to increase and have increased as people are attempting to make unsuccessful claims, because they all have to still be dealt with, of course, once they arrive into the inbox. I don't know, Naomi, are you free yet?
Yeah, I agree. There's sort of multi-layers of reasons. Furlough, UC, £20, SICE grants, and it will increase your council tax claims, your HP. So yeah, quite a lot.
Okay, so we'll continue to monitor. I can't see this settling down for at least another year. Can either of you?
It's going to be a rocky road, I agree. It's not going to be a certain gradual increase or a gradual decrease. There are going to be troughs and bumps along the way.
Yeah, and of course we're also, you know, waiting to see what happens in terms of COVID and flu and things across the winter, and whether you know there end up being any more kind of, you know, big moves in the kind of pandemic, and therefore any big moves in the kind of support that gets provided.
And we haven't really come to grips yet with the impacts of long COVID, have we?
I don't think anybody knows what they are, except for the fact that there seems to be pretty much of a consensus that there is an impact. And I guess it's going to be a little bit for some people like ME, where, you know, you're able to work and then not able to work over a long period of time in different kind of stages, and that's really challenging for the benefit system, both in terms of the kind of the sickness and disability support like ESA, but also in terms of people who are making, you know, frequent changes of circumstance, kind of claims and amendments.
And we're not kind of seeing with long COVID that is being limited to older people. That seems to be affecting young people as well, doesn't it?
From what I read, yes. Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to the next subject. Has Liz or Laura joined us by any chance?
I'm
Liz?
here.
Hi, Liz.
Hi.
Okay, so conferences. Just bring the slide up. So conferences are returning by the looks of it, certainly from October, and this is live conferences. I was just a bit curious. Are we planning to go? Are we excited by the idea that we could all gather together? Can we afford to go? Because after the 2008 crash, the number of people that went to conferences dropped quite significantly. And I guess probably the other question is, can we afford not to go? Are you attending conferences, Gareth?
Well, we tend to attend as exhibitors, I guess, although pretty infrequently now, because they just don't seem to provide the opportunity for us to talk enough to delegates. The kind of the drive, understandably, is to keep people in the conference sessions rather than wandering around exhibition halls. My suspicion about the kind of the economics of conferences is that there would be a lot less exhibitors willing and able to go, and that must have a really big impact on the conference organisers' costs and the feasibility of them.
Yeah, I mean, we're in the same position, and yes, I mean, we're looking quite seriously at whether it's worthwhile actually taking conference stands, and whether there are other ways of achieving the same thing. What about you, Naomi? Is your organisation looking at going to conferences?
Yeah, Cambridge are going to send a couple of delegates to Telford, myself included. I've run out of pens and notepads and post-it notes.
I'll stock up then.
I do actually find the IRRB conference really, really informative. There are some cracking speakers. There's usually some very good exhibitors, and it's an opportunity to sit and chat to your colleagues up and down the country. And this year it might be quite a bit of a self-help group. You know, we'll just there. We know we're all in the same boat. And I think that would be quite a positive experience for anyone going to. And with many things, the more you put into it, the more you will get.
Yeah, I mean, we will be exhibiting at the IRRB conference in Telford this year, but it is very much under review. I have to say, Liz, conference is something you would go to?
Well, being slightly outside the local authority remit at the moment, it's quite expensive to go to these conferences, but I do think actually they might assume more relevance in the future and now, because quite honestly, a lot of the conference attendance is to do with networking, is to do with talking to colleagues, picking up new pieces of information, listening to what people have to say, and that's been quite missing in people's working lives at the moment. So I think, yes, probably people will attend. And you get my point about, we're all told that, you know, working from home, most people like working from home, most people like hybrid working, and I say that this is a part of hybrid working. It's important.
Yes, and I expect conferences, Gareth, are going to be hybrid, aren't they, in the future?
Oh, I think so. I think there are going to be an awful lot of people and employers who will want to get kind of the most value out of them at the least cost. And if we have the hybrid conference, it's an awful lot cheaper to put somebody, you know, in the office online for the session that they're interested in than to send them to some exotic part of Salford or wherever it might be. And pay the transport and the accommodation and the subsistence costs that go along with it. So I think there'll be an awful lot of pressure to run them in a hybrid way, particularly for people that really have a kind of a limited or particular interest in what's being talked about. And I guess the conference organisers are going to have to respond to that or run a whole pile of risks.
Malcolm, how are they going to be run this year?
I understand the
say
IRR.
live conferences here. Well, I mean, to me, that means not hybrid, but clearly I might have got that wrong.
Yeah, I mean, the IRRV conference I am led to understand is going to be hybrid.
Right.
So you'll be able to join virtually as well as attend physically. I think that the Chartered Institute of Housing is going to be hybrid as well, but I'm not entirely certain. The SIPFA conference, of course, was actually earlier, and of course the IRRB Scottish conference is going to be virtual. The SIPFA one was virtual because it was held last month, but they are going to have a live awards dinner thing, which will be, I think, also in October. FutureGov. Let's come to FutureGov in a minute. I guess probably actually let's do FutureGov and the Society of Information Technology Managers. I mean, FutureGov has always been very good at producing very modern conferences. I don't know, Naomi, have you ever been to a FutureGov conference?
No, I haven't.
Well, I mean, I highly recommend them because they are very modern. I mean, most presentations don't last more than 10 minutes. They do what they call pop-up presentations. They do quite a lot of panel sessions, and their online sessions have been very similar. Sorry, I'll wait for whoever's rummaging through their desks to finish rummaging.
I've also worked with FutureGov, and their presentations are really on the ball. I mean, they use the most, I would say, yeah, maybe this is an odd word to use, but they use the most exciting online technology to get things across.
Can I admit I've never heard of FutureGov?
No, that's fine. So they're based in I think they're based in Sheffield, London, Leeds, Manchester, and fundamentally they focus very much around the policy and strategy and technology end of things. I'll make you a recommendation, Gareth. I'll speak to you about them later. But the conferences I've been to with FutureGov, I've really walked away and thought that was a waste of my time. But I think that probably highlights something else, doesn't it? If we go to a hybrid model, and we already have people like FutureGov, and I assume Society of Information Technology Managers as well, then actually, does that not mean that we have to also come to grips with multimedia much better?
I think it means a couple of things. One's going to be that the skills for presenting to people online, I guess, as we all know, are quite different from the skills of talking to a hall full of people. And the tools that you've got to use there are a little bit more open again than just the traditional kind of PowerPoint stuff. But the other thing I think that's really interesting is that it just gets rid of all of the geographical constraints, apart from, as you're no doubt very aware, the time differences across continents. I've been invited to speak at a couple of conferences coming up over the next few months, which would otherwise have been physically in the States or in Australia. And I've been to conferences in both places before, and it's an expensive and lengthy process to get there, then do your half hour and then get home again. So the opportunity to pull in expertise from other parts of the globe and experience from other parts of the globe, I think is really, really interesting. And I'll be very surprised if conferences don't take advantage of that in future.
Yeah, I think very much. Actually, I'm registered to attend, I think, another 2 international conferences this year, one being held in Germany and the other being held here in the States. And yeah, the constraints completely disappear, and the access to a much wider talent base is quite exciting, I think. Okay, go on, Liz.
The nail on the head.
Sorry, Nahum.
Yeah, and I also sort of said it. I think many of the conferences have the element of networking, which, as we start to come out, hopefully, the other end of COVID, I think networking and understanding that the successes and pitfalls from our colleagues around the country will be very important. And that's something that is difficult to facilitate online.
Well, I think you're right, but also, I mean, I kind of think that maybe it's a generational thing. But coming to grips with networking via social media is also quite an important skill now. I think, as quite a lot of my networking now is done through things like WhatsApp groups and LinkedIn groups and things like that. Is that not the same for you, Gareth, as well these days?
Yeah, not so, more personally, I guess, than professionally. Although we're doing a lot more kind of stuff online, it's not networking based. I mean, there are networking systems developing that use online things, and they have things like Hivebright and so on that are beginning to show some kind of opportunity for the informal networking bit. And I suspect that there are an awful lot of people working very, very hard and quickly on extending those kind of capabilities. And when they do, then yeah, I mean, I guess certainly traditional conferences have always been a large part of the networking value has come out of kind of social interactions. And until that can be reproduced in some way online, then people will still have that kind of value in attending physically, I suppose.
Yeah, and actually, I mean, I wasn't poo-pooing your point at all. I mean, I think you're absolutely right, Naomi, that the physical networking is an important part, but I just see it being supplemented or supported more through alternative methods as well.
Malcolm, we have Lynn McMorris has made a comment in the chat, saying that isn't what we're doing now a good example of online networking. Lynn goes on to mention that online makes it more accessible to more colleagues across the country who can't travel or can't afford. I mean, we've certainly found over the last sort of, I don't know, maybe 10 years that going to some of the traditional conferences like the IRRV, the numbers of local authority partners turning up has sort of gone down as charges for gala meals have gone up, and there's even less tickets are being given out, aren't they, for sort of people in local authority. So online does help in that way.
Yeah, it certainly does, and yes, can I thank you, Lynn? I mean, yes, this is probably a good example of a form of networking. I mean, even though not everybody participates, we have a regular group who come onto this session.
Malcolm, you talked about WhatsApp groups.
Ah, you're right. Yeah, fine, thanks. I've just opened the garage. Are you not being here?
That's not me.
Okay. No, that's not you. Yeah. Please open the garage. That'll be brilliant.
That's one of the problems with this kind of
Just have to
networking.
walk
There's too
through.
many
Is that
eavesdroppers.
okay?
Yes, okay.
Device.
This is just proving that maybe sometimes it doesn't work quite so well.
Yes.
But I mean, actually, sometimes when I had this opinion that when you actually open this up to teams, was more involvement, I felt, to start off with, from those people who were part of this, but normally didn't say anything. There was much more involvement. Actually, and some of that, I think, is because of chat, that you could put stuff in the chat line, and that was interesting, and people put their points forward and also came on. So I suppose what I'm getting round to is, what about a WhatsApp group for this?
Yes, certainly. If there's interest, I'm more than happy to set up a WhatsApp group.
Because sometimes I feel that, particularly perhaps from the panelists, they've been in touch with you, and we've had a discussion about things, which sometimes feels a little exclusive.
Yes, I mean, I'm quite happy to open a WhatsApp group, and yes,
I mean, if there's an appetite for it, it might be another networking tool that's available.
Okay, yeah. Are the rest of you happy for me to set up a WhatsApp group? Naomi?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, and Gareth?
Yeah. I think that's quite a good idea. Although I would say that one thing about networking, of course, is that it's different talking to the people you want to talk to and talking to everybody.
Yes.
And that's what's difficult to control, the kind of the private networking bit rather than the public networking bit.
Yeah, and also people's natural shyness, which you and I, Gareth, both familiar with, being shy individuals ourselves.
Oh yes.
Right. Okay.
Actually, I think it overcomes some of that natural shyness, much as the chat does here, because you're expressing your ideas without having to talk, if you see what I mean. It just
Yeah.
seems to me that it's more open with chat, with a line of communication that isn't spoken.
Yes, and WhatsApp is end-to-end encrypted and private, so that means people can express their views and not expect it to.
The only thing I suppose I think about is the fact that there's just another thing that you're involved in.
Yeah, thanks for that, Liz.
Malcolm, we have Lynn McMorris has raised her hand.
Yeah, let Lynn in.
Can you hear me, everyone?
I can, yes.
The reason I put it in the chat is I'm sure people get sick and tired of me every week, putting my hand up and talking.
Well, you're one of those shy people.
Very shy, Malcolm, as you know. But I do think that this is a very good format because obviously there's a set time and it allows a lot of it. But I do take Liz's point that a lot of time of the meeting is taken up with the panelists, quite rightly, because you're hosting it. But we always run out of time. So maybe it's a case of allowing a bit more time so we can get involved in chat.
Yeah, sure. I mean, part of the reason that it's taken up with the panelists is because, fundamentally it is open. If anybody wants to raise their hand, then they can join in or they can put into the chat. That it's certainly open in that way, but it requires people to do that, to take advantage of that. I mean, I'm more than happy. I mean, as you know, I mean, we've done conferences now. We're just coming up to 25 minutes past, so we probably won't get on to the next subject this week, and we'll hold it over to next week. But yeah, and I have let it run on till 2:15 or whatever if the conversation is working. I'm also conscious that we do try to limit the time so people can schedule their next meetings, etc. But yeah, I mean, I'm open to all of that, Lynn. If you please, anybody who wants to come and join in. I mean, just out of interest, let's just do a raise of hands. How many people would join in more if they felt it was more open? We won't open everybody's lines. We'll just have a quick look at the show of hands. Jake, if you can tell me what that looks like.
Hands are being raised. We've got 5 so far.
Okay, so I mean, all we really don't do is we don't open up all of the mics because otherwise it just gets a bit too noisy, which is why we use the raise of hands. But I don't think actually the mics are automatically muted either. I think we may mute everybody when they come in, again, just to keep the noise levels down. But otherwise, yeah, I mean, we're open. We have panels so that we can make certain conversation occurs. But beyond that, we're quite happy to have you in. I mean, you come in most weeks, don't you, Lynn? And you're not officially on the panel.
No, absolutely. But I don't. I'm one of these people that if something piques my interest, I will join in. And I find that the panelists are all really interesting and informative. But it's just, I think more people would join in if we had a bit more time, because it normally takes the half hour for the panelists to go through their important update.
Okay, so are you suggesting that we should extend this, maybe make it 45 minutes?
It's not for me to decide on that, obviously, but I think that there would be more interaction, which is what we were talking about, the networking. So your part and the panelist part is like the presentations at conference. And then the other part is us all like having a little, oh, I did it this way or I did it that way. And sort of that's the sort of the networking part, isn't it?
Yeah, okay. I'll tell you what I'll do is I'll draft up a short survey and send that out to everybody. Would that be sensible?
Cool.
Yeah.
I can't find the facility to stick my hand up, so I'm just going to stick my voice in.
Yes, that's okay.
I wanted to ask you actually, how many people of this group submit questions to you?
Oh, actually, we don't. I don't get that many questions beforehand.
Which is sort of what I thought in relation to a WhatsApp group, because effectively, if you are discussing
Yeah.
something in the office, perhaps. You know, you may want a wider perspective on this, but somehow that isn't. It could be asked through this group.
Yes, and in fact, actually, I think most weeks that I write out, I ask if anybody's
You
got
do.
anything.
That's why I asked the question.
Yeah, can they chip in? Otherwise, it's down to me to decide what I think is most current that we need to speak about. Okay, somebody's. Okay. Yeah,
Whose
but
garage door was it, by the way? I'm fascinated.
I've got no idea. But,
well, of course you haven't, no.
But Jake can probably tell us. But yeah. Let's have another push, because that's the purpose of this session. Was always the purpose of this session was to be more open and have more people involved. So let's see if we can get more people involved, and maybe there's, say, maybe a WhatsApp would raise the subject matter and therefore allow me to be a bit more flexible. Yeah, that'd be great.
Are you happy, Malcolm, for people to make suggestions for agendas and things?
Yeah, as I've just said, I write out each week and ask people for suggestions. You know, it becomes a task for me on a Sunday to have to work out what we're going to be speaking about. You know, on the Monday. So yeah, more than happy. Would be delighted. You know. So on that basis, as we've now come to 12:30, and I think we've done conferences in this session, we'll do the no jab, no job next week, unless you all come up with really much more exciting subjects for us to discuss. But otherwise, I'll call it time today, unless anybody wants to discuss anything else for another 15 minutes. Lynn, did you have something?
No, not today, not at all. Because but what I do find is that sometimes I don't see a lot of stuff because for some reason it goes into my junk rather than into my email box. So sometimes I see things at the last minute.
Right, I can't really help you there. You have to.
Yeah, I mean, I'll check
your ICT people.
I'm sure you're clear.
You kind of hope so. But yeah, I mean that's also one of the problems with email is that you know there's lots of sections now. Your ISP may junk stuff. Your ICT department might junk stuff, and then you might junk stuff as well unknowingly. So yeah, so it's kind of, I mean, fundamentally, if you want to get the stuff, then you need to put me onto your safe list. And I'm conscious of the fact that when the emails go out, it goes out under my live account for some reason rather than my TeamNetSol account.
Well, that might be it, Malcolm. That might be it.
I think probably my live account is more likely to get through to you than the TeamNetSol one, to be honest.
I hope not, as we're partners.
Yeah. It's the mysteries of new technology. But anyway, Malcolm, yeah, okay. Yes, Malcolm, yes.
We have one quick query from Claire Pierce Crawford saying, will we be asking people for telephone numbers for a WhatsApp group? I think you pretty much nailed on. You have to connect via telephone number, don't you? So that was something.
Yeah, I think so. Though actually, I mean, lots of people connect to me by looking up Gardmal, which is my WhatsApp handle. That's GARDMAL. So you know, so if you don't want to give your telephone number, you can always connect to me through WhatsApp by looking me up rather than the other way around. But yeah, normally telephone numbers are essential for a WhatsApp group because it is a telephone-based system, really. Okay, so on that basis, can I thank everybody? Can I thank you, Gareth, for your input? Thank you very much.
You're very welcome, as always.
And can I thank Lynn for her contributions? Thank you, Lynn.
You're welcome.
And Liz and Naomi, can I thank you both?
Yes.
Okay, and I'll see you all next week. And thank you for everybody for coming on today.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone.